I went straight to her browser history. It was mostly cleared, but she'd forgotten to erase the saved passwords. So I get to enter her Facebook account easily, and when I checked the inbox, I was shocked so much that got a panic attack instant. Let's tell you the story from the beginning, and if you guys are new on the channel, please comment below. Where are you watching from? They say the moment your life shatters isn't always a loud, dramatic crash. Sometimes it's a whisper. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift in the atmosphere of a room you've known your whole life. For me, it was the scent of a stranger's cologne clinging to my wife's sweater, a fragrance I would later come to know as Terre d'Hermès, a name that would taste like ash in my mouth. I had just come home from a long day at the architecture firm. The model for the new waterfront development was giving me trouble. The scale of the central plaza felt off, and the client was a man who believed his wealth granted him an innate understanding of spatial dynamics. The scent of balsa wood and coffee was embedded in my own clothes, a familiar perfume of my own stress. Pushing open the front door of our modest but beautiful Victorian house, a project we had poured our souls into, I was met with the usual comforting sounds. The gentle hum of the dishwasher, the distant melody of our daughter, Lily, practicing her piano in the sunroom. And then, as I hung my coat next to Elena's in the hallway, I smelled it. Sharp, woody, with a hint of grapefruit. It was a sophisticated scent. Nothing like the simple, clean soap I used, or the faint, floral notes of Elena's usual perfume. It was distinctly masculine, and it was all over the cream-colored cashmere sweater she'd been wearing that morning. I stood there, frozen, my hand still on the rough wool of my own coat. My mind, trained to solve problems, to find logic and structure, immediately began offering rational explanations. She'd been Christmas shopping at the department store, perhaps. Brushed against a counter. Maybe a colleague at the gallery where she worked as a curator had worn it. But the scent wasn't a faint whisper. It was an embrace. It was as if the man who wore it had held her close for a long time. "Liam, is that you?" Elena's voice floated from the kitchen, light and airy. A sound that had been the soundtrack to my happiness for 12 years. I forced my feet to move, my face arranging itself into what I hoped was a neutral expression. "Yeah, it's me." She was at the stove, stirring a pot of bolognese, her back to me. Her auburn hair was piled in a messy bun, and she wore the apron I'd bought her on our honeymoon in Italy. The scene was so quintessentially us, so perfectly constructed, that the dissonance of that foreign cologne made me feel dizzy. "Long day?" she asked, turning to smile at me. Her eyes, the color of warm honey, crinkled at the corners. They were the same eyes that had held mine as we said our vows, that had sparkled with tears of joy when Lily was born. I searched them now for a flicker of guilt, a shadow of deceit. I found nothing but the familiar, warm affection. "The usual," I managed, my voice tight. "Carter wants a fountain now. A 3-tiered monstrosity right in the middle of the pedestrian walkway." She laughed, a sound that usually melted my stress away. Now, it felt like a performance. "Well, he's paying for it. How was your day?" This was our ritual, the exchange of daily mundanities. But tonight, the question felt loaded. What would she say? Would she mention a trip to the mall? An encounter with a client? "Oh, fine," she said, turning back to the sauce. "Busy at the gallery. We're finalizing the details for the Henderson exhibition." And I had lunch with Sarah. Sarah, her best friend. A safe, explainable alibi. My heart, which had been hammering against my ribs, slowed its frantic pace. "See? You're being paranoid, Liam. You're tired. Stressed." This was Elena. My Elena. The woman who had stood by me when my father died, who had held my hand through every professional failure and success. We had built this life, brick by brick, room by room. We had designed it together. But as I walked over to kiss her cheek, the scent of Terre d'Hermès rose from her skin. Stronger now, mixed with the aroma of garlic and tomatoes. It was a violation, an ugly graffiti scrawled across the masterpiece of our marriage. I kissed her, my lips barely brushing her skin, and the act felt like a betrayal of my own instincts. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. I helped Lily with her math homework, my mind miles away, calculating not angles and equations, but possibilities and lies. I watched Elena move around our home, touching the furniture we'd chosen together, straightening a photograph of the three of us on the beach, and a cold dread began to solidify in my gut. This wasn't paranoia. This was the quiet, terrifying certainty of an architect who knows, just by looking, that a foundation has been compromised. That night, lying beside her in the dark, listening to the even rhythm of her breathing, I made a decision. I would not confront her. Not yet. An accusation without evidence would only give her a chance to build better defenses, to hide the cracks more carefully. I am a man who deals in blueprints, in load-bearing walls, in undeniable facts. I needed a blueprint of her betrayal. I needed to understand the architecture of the lie before I could tear it down. The next morning, I feigned a stomach bug. I called in sick to work, something I almost never did. Elena fussed over me, her concern feeling genuine, which only twisted the knife deeper. After she and Lily left Elena to drop Lily at school and then head to the gallery, the house was silent, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I started with her car. Nothing in the glove compartment. No mysterious receipts. Her phone was the obvious next step, but she was meticulous with her passcode. I knew it was Lily's birthday, but she never saved anything incriminating in her messages or emails. She was too smart for that. It was her laptop, left charging on her desk in the little nook we called her home office, that offered the first real clue. She usually took it to the gallery, but today, perhaps distracted by my sudden illness, she had forgotten it. My hands trembled as I opened it. The login screen appeared. I tried Lily's birthday. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I tried the date of our first kiss, the name of our first pet, the street she grew up on. Nothing. I was about to give up when I remembered something. Years ago, when we first bought the house, she had joked that the only thing she could ever remember was the security code for the alarm system, because it was the numerical pattern of the front porch steps. It was a sequence I had designed myself. I typed in the numbers 2846. The screen unlocked. For a moment, I felt a surge of triumph, immediately followed by a wave of self-loathing. I was hacking into my wife's computer. This was who I had become. I went straight to her browser history. It was mostly cleared, but she'd forgotten to erase the saved passwords. My eyes scanned the list: banking, utilities, social media, and then one entry under a cloud storage site I didn't recognize. Elena Private. My breath hitched. I clicked the link. It prompted for a password. I clicked Show Password, and the field populated with a string of characters. It was the alarm code, followed by Lily. The folder opened. It contained a single document titled Journal.x. My mouse hovered over the icon. This was the threshold. Once I crossed it, there would be no going back. The life I knew would be gone. I thought of Lily's laugh, of Elena's smile, of the solidity of the walls around me. Then I thought of the cologne. I double-clicked. The document wasn't a diary in the traditional sense. It was a series of entries, disjointed, passionate, and devastatingly explicit. They were letters written to him. October 12th. My dearest Jay, today, in the storage room, surrounded by those dusty, forgotten landscapes, you made me feel more alive than I have in years. The risk was insane. Thrilling. When you pressed me against the crate, your lips on my neck, the whole world narrowed to the scent of you, the feel of you. I can still smell it on my skin. I had to lie to Liam, tell him I spilled perfume. He believed me, of course. He always believes me. The guilt is a sharp stone in my shoe. But when I think of you, it melts away. I stopped reading. The words blurred on the screen. J. Julian? Jonathan? The storage room had to be at the gallery. The date was 2 days ago. The cologne. It was all real. The foundation of my world didn't just crack. It vaporized. I was falling through empty space. I scrolled, my vision tunneling, my stomach churning. Entry after entry, spanning months. They detailed lunchtime trysts at a hotel across town called the Alexander. Whispered phone calls while I was in the shower. A weekend work trip to a conference in Chicago that never happened. Jay makes me feel seen. Liam sees the wife, the mother. Jay sees the woman, the artist, the passionate creature I thought I'd buried. Liam talks of floor plans and retaining walls. Jay talks of poetry, of the soul, of the fire that should animate a life. Each word was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. The details were a meticulous demolition of my character. I was portrayed as stable, reliable, boring, A comfortable house she had outgrown. He was the exciting, unpredictable storm. The final entry was from yesterday. My love, I can't do this anymore. The lying is eating me alive. Every time I look at Lily, I feel like a fraud. I'm going to tell him. Tonight, after Lily goes to sleep. I'm terrified, but I know it's the only way. We can be together properly. Just hold me. Soon. I leaned back in the chair. The air punched from my lungs. She was going to leave me tonight. The knowledge was a physical blow. For hours, I sat there in the silent house, the ghost of my marriage flickering on the screen. The man of action, the problem solver, was completely paralyzed. When I finally moved, it was with a strange, cold calm. I closed the document. I cleared the browser history. I logged out. I placed the laptop exactly as I had found it. Then I went upstairs, packed a small bag, and wrote a note. Elena, something's come up at the site. A structural emergency. Don't wait up. I'll be late. Asterisk. L asterisk. It was a coward's note, but it bought me time. I couldn't be there for her confession. I couldn't listen to her justify her betrayal, to tell me how another man had made her feel alive while I, her husband, had apparently let her wither. I needed to be the one to control the demolition. I drove aimlessly for hours, finally checking into a soulless chain hotel near the airport. I didn't sleep. I stared at the textured ceiling, replaying every moment of our life together, searching for the weaknesses I had missed. The late nights at the gallery, the new interest in her appearance, the subtle distance that I had attributed to stress. It was all there. A pattern of neglect. I had been too busy, too self-involved to see. The next morning, I went to work as if nothing had happened. I was a shell, moving through the motions. My partner, Mark, took one look at my face and asked if I was still sick. I grunted a non-committal reply and buried myself in the problematic fountain for Carter. Elena texted me around 10. Hey, you were gone before I woke up. Is everything okay at the site? You seemed off last night. The concern in her text felt like the cruelest joke. She was following the script, waiting for her cue to deliver the lines that would end our play. But I had torn up the script. Just a lot of pressure from Carter, I typed back. Sorry I was distant. Love you. I stared at the words, love you, before hitting send. They were the biggest lie I had ever told. The day of her planned confession came and went. I came home late, claiming overtime. She was anxious, fidgety, but I gave her no opening. I talked incessantly about work, about Lily's upcoming piano recital, about everything and nothing. I built a wall of mundane chatter so high she couldn't scale it. I saw the confusion in her eyes. Her plan had been thwarted. The J in her journal must have been wondering what had happened. This became our new normal, a Cold War fought in a beautiful house. I became a master of avoidance. I worked longer hours. I volunteered for out-of-town projects. When I was home, I was physically present but emotionally absent. I stopped asking about her day. I stopped touching her. The warmth that had defined our home was replaced by a polite, glacial chill. Lily felt it. Are you and Mom fighting? She asked one night, her small face pinched with worry. No, sweetheart, I said, my heart breaking. Mom and I are just tired. Grown-up stuff. I watched Elena wilt under this new regime. The guilt she had written about was now a constant companion, etched on her face. She tried to reach me, to reignite the connection. She made my favorite meals. She suggested date nights. She bought me a ridiculously expensive watch for my birthday. Each gesture felt like a bribe. An attempt to placate a god she didn't know was already vengeful. I accepted it all with a grim smile. I wore the watch. I ate the meals. I even went on a date night, where I talked about the structural integrity of reinforced concrete for 2 hours until she fell silent. I was punishing her with the very boredom she had accused me of. I was showing her exactly what life would be like with a man who had built a fortress around his heart. Meanwhile, I began my own investigation. Jay wasn't hard to find. His name was Julian Croft. He was a minorly successful artist whose work Elena had championed at the gallery. A few clicks online revealed a man of about 40, with a carefully cultivated bohemian aesthetic salt and pepper hair, intense eyes, a penchant for wearing scarves. He had a reputation for being passionate and volatile. He was everything I was not. I discovered he had a wife, a quiet, mousy woman named Beatrice who taught elementary school. The discovery fueled my rage. He wasn't just stealing my wife, he was betraying his own, a woman who seemed entirely undeserving of such treachery. For months, I lived this double life. The stoic, wounded husband at home, and the obsessed, calculating sleuth in the shadows. I knew their schedule, Tuesdays and Thursdays, between 1 and 3 p.m. at the Alexander Hotel. I even knew the room they usually booked, a suite on the 5th floor with a view of the river. I thought about confronting them. I imagined kicking the door open, playing the cuckolded husband to dramatic effect. But it felt cheap beneath me. I wanted a reckoning, not a scene. The opportunity presented itself on a rainy Tuesday in November. I was supposed to be in Albany, reviewing permits. Instead, I was parked across the street from the Alexander, the wipers of my car slapping back and forth like a metronome counting down the seconds. At 12:45 p.m., I saw Julian's flashy sports car pull up. He got out, his collar turned up against the rain, and hurried inside. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Just wanted to say I love you. Hope the permits go well. XO. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. I typed a reply, my fingers cold and stiff. Love you too. Should be wrapped up by dinner. I waited. The rain intensified, sheeting down the windshield, blurring the world into a miserable watercolor. I felt a profound emptiness. What was I doing here? What did I hope to achieve? Proof? I had all the proof I needed. This was just self-flagellation. I was about to start the car and drive away when I saw her. She emerged from a taxi, a trench coat belted tightly, a scarf covering her hair. She looked around, a furtive, nervous gesture. Before darting into the hotel lobby, that single glance, that check for witnesses, broke something final inside me. It was the look of a criminal. It was not the face of my wife. I sat there for the full 2 hours, a sentinel at the gates of my own hell. When she emerged, her face was flushed, her step light. She looked happy, revitalized, just as she had written. She hailed another taxi and disappeared into the gray afternoon. I started the car and drove. I didn't go home. I drove to the half-constructed skeleton of the waterfront development. I stood in the rain, looking out at the churning, gray water, the wind whipping at my coat. The sight was a mess of mud and steel, a promise of something beautiful that now felt utterly meaningless. This project, this career, this life, it was all a facade. I had been building sandcastles, and the tide had come in. I knew what I had to do. The waiting, the punishing silence was destroying me as much as it was hurting her. It was time to bring down the wrecking ball, but I would do it on my terms. I would not be the man she confessed to. I would be the architect of the end. I went to a lawyer the next day. I started the process coldly, methodically. I had all the evidence I needed, the journal, the hotel receipts I could subpoena, photographs of them entering and leaving the hotel. I wanted it to be clean, clinical, and devastatingly in my favor. I would have primary custody of Lily. I would keep the house. I would leave her with nothing but the consequences of her choices. I planned to serve her the papers on a Friday, after Lily was at a sleepover. I would pack a bag and leave. There would be no discussion, no negotiation, just the cold, hard facts of the law. But fate, it seems, has a cruel sense of irony. It decided to write an ending far more dramatic than anything I could have conceived. It was a Thursday, the day before D-Day. I was in my office, finalizing the details with my lawyer, when my phone rang. It was Lily's school. Mr. Thorne? This is Principal Evans. There's been an incident. Lily fell during gym class. It's her head. It's serious. They've taken her to County General. The world dropped out from under me. The carefully constructed walls of my revenge crumbled to dust. Nothing mattered. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Not the divorce. Only Lily. I don't remember the drive to the hospital. I remember the smell of antiseptic, the blindingly bright lights, the sound of my own ragged breathing. I burst into the emergency room waiting area, and there she was, Elena. She was standing alone, her arms wrapped around herself, her face a mask of pure, undiluted terror. She saw me and let out a small, broken sound. Liam. In that moment, She wasn't the betrayer. She was the mother of my child. We were two halves of a whole, united by a fear so profound it eclipsed everything else. I went to her, and she collapsed against my chest, sobbing. "What happened?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "They don't know," she choked out. "She fell from the climbing rope. She wasn't that high up, but she hit her head on the way down. She hasn't woken up." We clung to each other, two shipwreck survivors in a stormy sea. The past months vanished. There was only the present, this sterile, terrifying room, and the fragile life of our daughter hanging in the balance. A doctor emerged, his face grim. "Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, Lily has a severe traumatic brain injury. There's significant swelling. We've managed to stabilize her for now, but she's in a medically induced coma to allow her brain to rest. The next 24 to 48 hours are critical." He led us to the ICU. Seeing Lily in that bed was a physical pain I cannot describe. Our vibrant, funny, brilliant girl was pale and still, a tangle of tubes and wires connecting her to beeping machines that charted her fragile existence. A large bandage was wrapped around her head. She looked so small, so defenseless. We took up vigil on either side of her bed. We didn't speak, we just held her hands, each of us lost in our own private hell of prayer and regret. Hours bled into one another. The sun set, and the room was lit only by the ghostly glow of the monitors. At some point during the long, dark night, Elena broke the silence. Her voice was a raw whisper. "This is my fault." I looked up sharply. For a wild moment, I thought she was confessing to the affair, as if that had some cosmic connection to our daughter's fall. "What are you talking about?" Tears streamed down her face, carving paths through her exhaustion. "I've been so distracted, so absent. If I had been more present, if I hadn't been so wrapped up in my own stupid life, maybe I would have noticed she was tired. Maybe I would have kept her home. This is a punishment." Her words hung in the air. She was talking about a different sin than the one I knew, but the guilt was the same. It was a crack in her armor, and for the first time, I saw the true depth of her remorse. It wasn't the performative guilt of someone who'd been caught. It was the soul-crushing regret of a mother who believed she had failed her child. "Don't be ridiculous, Elena," I said, my voice flat. "It was an accident." But she shook her head, sobbing quietly. "You don't understand. You have no idea what I've done." I almost told her right then. I know everything. But I looked at Lily's still face, and the words died in my throat. This was not the time. Our war had to be put on hold. There was only one battle that mattered now. The next 2 days were an agony of waiting. We took turns dozing in the uncomfortable chairs, eating the terrible hospital food, and jumping every time a nurse entered the room. We spoke in hushed tones about Lily, her favorite books, the funny things she said, the way she played the piano with such fierce concentration. We were building a fragile bridge over the chasm between us, a bridge made of shared memories and shared fear. On the second night, the crisis peaked. Lily's intracranial pressure spiked dangerously. The medical team rushed in, their voices tense and professional. They increased her medication, adjusted the ventilator. Elena and I were shunted into the hallway, holding on to each other, watching through the glass as they fought for our daughter's life. It was in that hallway, under the fluorescent lights, that Elena truly broke. She slid down the wall to the floor, pulling her knees to her chest, and began to weep deep, guttural sobs that seemed to tear themselves from the very core of her being. "I'm sorry," she wailed, not looking at me, speaking to the universe, to God, to anyone who would listen. "I'm so sorry. Please, please, don't take her. Take me instead. I'll do anything. I'll give anything. Just let her be okay. I'll fix it. I'll make it all right. I promise." I knelt beside her, my own tears falling. I put my arm around her, and she turned into me, burying her face in my shoulder, her body shaking uncontrollably. "She's going to be okay," I whispered, a mantra I didn't believe but desperately needed to hear. "She's a fighter. She's our girl." After what felt like an eternity, the doctor emerged. He looked exhausted, but he offered a small, tired smile. "We've got the pressure down. She's stable again. She's a tough kid." The relief was so overwhelming it left us weak. We stumbled back into the room, collapsing into our chairs, spent. The immediate danger had passed. Lily had survived the night. As dawn broke, casting a pale, hopeful light into the room, Elena fell into a fitful sleep in her chair, her hand still clutching Lily's. I was too wired to sleep. I just watched them, my wife and my daughter, the two most important people in my world. One had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. The other was fighting for her life. And in the quiet of that morning, my anger began to transform. It didn't disappear, but it lost its sharp, jagged edges. It was replaced by a profound, weary sadness. The desire for revenge that had sustained me for months now felt petty and hollow. What good would it do to destroy Elena? It wouldn't unbetray me. It wouldn't heal Lily. It would only create more wreckage. Lily began to slowly improve over the next week. The swelling decreased. They started to bring her out of the coma. The first time her eyelids fluttered and her fingers twitched in my hand, I felt a joy so pure it was almost painful. Elena was a changed woman. The anxious, fidgety guilt was gone, replaced by a quiet, fierce determination. She barely left Lily's side. She spoke to her constantly, reading her favorite stories, telling her about our day, reminding her of who she was and how loved she was. She was fully, completely present in a way she hadn't been for a long, long time. I saw the love she had for our daughter, and I knew it was real. It was the truest part of her. And I realized, with a startling clarity, that the woman who had written those journal entries, the woman who had been swept away by Julian's poetry and passion, was a ghost, a desperate, lost version of the woman sitting before me now. The day Lily finally woke up properly, her eyes focusing on us, a croaky, "Mom? Dad?" escaping her lips, was the day I knew my plans for a vengeful divorce were over. We cried. We laughed. We held her gently. We were a family again, bound by a miracle. Lily's recovery was long. There were weeks of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and a long, slow road back to normalcy. We brought her home, and our house, which had felt like a museum of our dead marriage, became a sanctuary of healing. We focused all our energy on her. The affair, the betrayal, became a dormant beast in the basement of our lives. We didn't speak of it. We moved around each other with a new, careful politeness. The intimacy was gone, but a new kind of partnership had formed in the crucible of the hospital, a partnership dedicated to our child. It was a month after Lily came home. She was asleep upstairs, finally looking like herself again, color back in her cheeks. Elena and I were in the living room, sitting in silence. The grandfather clock ticked loudly. The air was thick with everything unsaid. She looked at me, and her eyes were clear and steady. "Liam," she said softly, "we need to talk." I knew the moment had come. The reprieve was over. "I know," I said. She took a deep, shuddering breath. "There's no easy way to say this, so I'll just say it. I had an affair." The words, spoken aloud after all this time, hung in the air between us. They were simple, stark, and devastating. "It's over," she continued quickly, her voice trembling. "It ended around the time Lily got hurt. It was with Julian Croft. It was a terrible, selfish, stupid mistake, and I am so, so sorry." I didn't say anything. I just watched her, letting her speak. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't deserve it. I betrayed you. I betrayed our family. I put my own emptiness above everything we built. I was lost, Liam. I felt invisible. I felt like I was just playing a part. Wife, mother, and he made me feel seen. It was a fantasy, a poisonous, destructive fantasy." She was crying openly now, her hands clenched in her lap. "When Lily was in the hospital, I saw what I had almost thrown away. I saw the only thing that really matters. This, you, her. I would give anything, to take it back. The regret, it's like a cancer inside me. I hate myself for what I've done." She looked at me, her honey-colored eyes pleading, not for forgiveness, but just to be heard. "I understand if you want me to leave. I'll go. I'll give you a divorce. You can have everything. I needed you to know how sorry I am, from the bottom of my soul." I was silent for a long time. I thought about the journal. I thought about the hotel. I thought about the scent of cologne. And then I thought about the hospital hallway, her raw, desperate prayers. I thought about the way she had cared for Lily, with a selflessness that was absolute. "I know," I said finally. She blinked. "You know?" "I've known for months," I said, my voice quiet but even. "I found your journal the day before you were going to tell me." The shock on her face was complete. It was followed by a dawning horror as she realized the magnitude of my silence. The coldness, the distance, it hadn't been stress. It had been a calculated punishment. "Oh, God," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "All this time you knew? And you said nothing?" "I was going to serve you with divorce papers," I said flatly. "The day after Lily's accident." She recoiled as if I'd struck her. The full picture of my revenge was now clear to her. I had been planning to annihilate her, to take her child and her home, all while pretending ignorance. "Why," she stammered, "why didn't you?" I looked toward the staircase, toward where our daughter slept. Because none of it mattered anymore. The silence that followed was heavier than any that had come before. We were both laid bare. Her betrayal was out in the open. My cold, protracted revenge was now revealed. We were both guilty. We were both shattered. "I don't know if we can come back from this, Elena," I said, and for the first time my voice cracked with emotion. "The trust is gone. What you did, it broke me." "I know," she wept. "I broke us, but," I continued, taking a deep breath, "I also saw you in that hospital. I saw the mother of my child. And that woman, I still love that woman." It was the truth. As complicated and messy as it was, I still loved her. I loved the history we shared. I loved the family we had created. The love was buried under an avalanche of pain and anger, but it was there. "I don't know what the future holds," I said. "I can't promise you we'll stay married. I can't promise I'll ever trust you the same way again. But for Lily's sake, and for the sake of the people we were before all of this, I'm willing to try, to see if we can build something new from the wreckage." It wasn't forgiveness. It was a ceasefire. It was a commitment to a painful, uncertain process. Elena looked at me, her face a mosaic of grief, regret, and a tiny, fragile sliver of hope. "I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that chance, Liam. I swear it." And so we began again, not as husband and wife, but as two wounded people, bound by a shared tragedy and a shared love for their child, walking a long, difficult road toward a horizon we couldn't yet see. The betrayal was a scar that would never fully fade, a permanent crack in the foundation of our lives. But sometimes, the Japanese believe, when something is broken and repaired with gold, it becomes more beautiful for having been broken. It becomes kintsugi. We are trying to find our gold. It is a slow, painstaking process. Some days the anger returns. Some days the regret overwhelms her. But we are trying. We are building something new, room by room, on the ruins of the old. And in the quiet moments, when I watch her read to Lily, or when I catch her looking at me with a love that is tempered by pain but is no less real, I allow myself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, the architecture of our new life will be stronger than the one that fell.